My name is Coach Mac, and I've been competitively running for like 18 years now. I'm a coach for 7 years, and I basically help runners get faster and qualify for things like Boston and get down to like a 3-hour marathon. And today I'm going to break down everything about tempos, like when to do them in your season, how much should you do them, how often, the progression from like as you get faster, what paces, what are they, all this stuff. So I'm going to break it down. I'm going to give you some numbers. I'm going to show you some charts. This might be a little bit like on the heavier side, but I will try and simplify it as much as I can. And I found that tempos are personally one of my favorite things, which is why we're breaking them down today, but they really do help you get faster. And it's one of the things that you can incorporate from anywhere from like if you're trying to get faster at 800 meters all the way up to the marathon. So let's break it down. I'm going to share a couple things with you. So give me a hot second. Base chart. Okay, there it is. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. You might have to squint a little bit. I could maybe even zoom in a little bit for you guys. Okay, so this is kind of what I personally use. Got from a couple trainings, education. We did tempos a bunch in college, which allowed me to get to nationals, all that stuff. And we kind of did them in high school. I don't completely remember, but now I use them with my athletes. Threshold workouts, you probably heard of that too. Okay, so on this chart right here, you'll see tempos, and everyone kind of has a little bit different version of a tempo. Some people might have tempo pace around like 88% or 84, and these numbers aren't super important. But just know that like if you're learning from multiple different sources, each one's going to be a little bit different. So what I'd highly recommend is if you have like a coach or like some platform that you love to get running information from, doesn't even have to be me, is just stick with that and like take all of their advice, because all of their stuff works together. It gets really hard when you're trying to pull information from like 7 different sources and piece it together when it was never meant to go together. So pick one thing to follow and like take in everything from them, and then you can usually recreate a pretty good like product or example without getting the full help from the individual. Okay, so tempo pace, really what this comes down to is a lot of training is based off of percentage of your VO2 max. So your VO2 max is how you would get this. What I usually have my athletes do is you run like a 5K time trial or a 2-mile time trial. If you're a little bit on like the slower end, I don't need to be mean about it or anything like that, but like if you're in like the 5-hour marathon or like a 6-hour marathon, you probably want to stick to more of a 2-mile time trial. If you're more like 4.5, 4 hours, 3 hours, stick to the 5K time trial. I won't get to the full parts of that, but basically you take your 5K time trial, and there's a calculation that you can do. I even have like a website that you can put it into that I can show you later, and it'll give you your VO2 max, which is usually a little bit slower than your 5K all-out race pace. Okay. So right here, so for example, it's like 97%. So you just add like 3% of your time back on, and that gives you your percentage. And then you take that of like what your average mile is, and it gets you to calculate out when you're running tempos, we run it at 85% of basically your 5K time trial. So where this begins to matter is we have all these workouts that we technically do. So a lot of things that I prescribe, like strides, would be at like all out pace. 400-meter workouts, we usually run them at 111% over, so you're running faster than your 5K pace. And then right around 5K paces, usually I do 1,000 meters, 800 mile repeats. Tempos is around 85%. Marathon pace is around 80%, and then your easy pace is around 70 to 65. Okay, so that kind of gives you an overall look of like everything. It doesn't have to be super important. Maybe I'll just quick show you this website that I made. If you want it, it's completely free. Let me go in and share it. You can probably just, the URL is probably there. If not, just let me know and I can, in the comments, and I can send it to you. But I created this thing with the help of AI. Basically, all you do is you put your name in, and let's say I am running a 18:30. Okay. Now this plugs into, you get all of your paces for the stuff that you need to run. So for 400 meter repeats, I'd run them at about 117, or usually I give like a range, 119 to 115, and you work down. Okay, so this would be 800, 1,000 meters, mile repeats, and then tempos, I'd run at 644, MER pace, marathon pace, 709, easy pace should be around this, and then for our Mac Daddy workout, it would be this. Okay, so if you need this, let me know. I can put that link in there, and it has a couple other things as well that you can do. But just find something that just calculates the pace for you is probably the biggest thing. It's not something that you need to like, share a different screen, going back. Okay, so that is kind of the like science behind a tempo. So for tempos, what we really kind of want to start at, is when you're doing stuff in this range, okay, around the like 88 to 84%. Usually for total volume of running at that pace, you want to kind of hit around 20 to 40 minutes, okay? And this is like tempos, fartleks, or hills. And then I'll give you some workout examples in a little bit. But for rest, usually it's none or it's very, very short. Because so oftentimes you can have like a 30-minute tempo, or you can have like 3 by 10 minute tempos with like 2 minutes rest in between. Those are like some examples of tempo workouts. But in general, the faster you are running those repeats, so like when I'm doing this, you get more recovery, but then you also do less volume. So like if you're doing a marathon workout, you are going to be doing more volume because your body can handle it more. If we do too much, then we risk injury. Okay, or just overdoing it. So for tempos, what I would highly recommend, I'll get kind of off this and break some other stuff down. Okay, wrote down a couple things for tempos, so fully breaking down. When should you do tempos? Okay, typically like the first 4 to 6 weeks is kind of like your base building phase, which is really should mostly be focused on increasing your mileage, kind of getting your long run up, running easy for the most part. You can do like fartleks or hills, but really it should just be focusing on building mileage and building the habit back in. So after you kind of get your base established, that is when you can start incorporating tempos. How often? When we think about all these workouts, tempos, intervals, marathon race pace, strides, top end pace, there's about like 5 different buckets, and tempos being one of those buckets. And you really never want to like get away from a bucket for too long. So you don't want to go like a month without doing tempos. You don't want to go a month without doing like top end speed like strides. You don't want to go a month without like kind of hitting some marathon pace. And some stuff you can, tweak. But the goal is to like build up to tempo pace, do that, and then it's easy to like maintain. So you kind of want to focus on it for a little bit, and then you can just kind of sprinkle it back in if it's not a huge part of your training. Like 800 meter repeats, you wouldn't do a ton of these at the end. But tempo pace is kind of a good staple to have in your marathon block. Okay, so I would recommend if you're doing like a workout a week is to honestly include it probably like every 2 to 3 weeks is to include a tempo workout. Okay, if you have it more often, workouts more often, you can kind of bump that up a little bit. So how much should you be doing of a tempo? So I'll give you some workout examples, probably more like the progression. So first one that I recommend, and you can kind of figure out where you are at, this is kind of what we did in college, would be like 3 by 5 minutes. And then all of these are going to have 2 minutes rest. Okay, so very short, 3 to 5 minutes, or running at tempo pace. And for tempo pace, you just can calculate it in there. I'll put the link in down below to figure out your pace. But really, tempos are not like a 5K hard interval effort. They're like uncomfortably hard, but it shouldn't be like you going all out. So usually on like a rate of perceived effort, what I tell my athletes is around like a 6 to a 7 is kind of where you're at. Like the first one should be a little bit easier. Okay, and then you can bump this up to 1 by 10. So 10-minute tempo and then 1 by 5. Then you could do 1 by 10 minutes, 2 by 5, and then you could do 2 by 10 minutes, and then 2 by 10 minutes and 1 by 5 minutes. Then you kind of bump it up and you can go 3 by 10, and then you could do 2 by 20, and then 2 by 20 plus 10. Like, you can kind of just keep bumping this up. So some of you might start, like in college, I think I started like 1 by 10 and 2 by 5. And really, I think I got up to 2 by 10 and like maybe a 5-minute after. No, I didn't ever get up to 3 by 10. Okay, so this is kind of the range that I stuck in college and was able to run like a 16:47 5K. Okay, so like pretty fast. So you want to stay at if it's like really easy, bump it up to the next one. And you kind of just want to, you shouldn't be like falling over completely exhausted from this. Like, we don't need to be on the ground. If you're on the ground, you did these too hard. That's not the goal of this, is to find tempo pace. Like, you want to get more time versus doing like 3 by 5 minutes. Like, I'd rather have you start at like, honestly, 1 by 10, 2 by 5, and then do 2 by 10. And I'd rather have you maybe increase, like, the goal is to get more time, not to run faster. If we're running faster, it's more like 5K repeats. Okay, so that's kind of a big focus with tempos, is if you feel like you can do more time, don't do faster. Okay? And so how you do it, again, 6 to 7. So, highly recommend to figure out your pacing for all of these workouts is to do a 5K time trial kind of at the beginning of your season. Figure out where your pace is, plug it into a calculator. There's other sites too that you can use besides mine. But then you can kind of get a tempo-ish pace that you are supposed to hit. And you might be like, do I just run this for the next, 4 months? No, typically, if it's like really easy, I bump up about every, let's say you run a 20-minute 5K. Then maybe in a month or 3 weeks, I bump it up to 19:30. And so we just kind of keep getting a little bit faster each time. Especially if the workouts are like too easy, then you can kind of know. And each athlete will be different, they will progress differently, so you just kind of have to keep checking in with yourself. But that is kind of everything about tempos. Let me know if you think I missed anything or if you have any other questions, but that's kind of a full breakdown. These are like super key. Oftentimes I think people spend so much time on like interval repeats, like 800, 400 meter repeats, and then they do like marathon stuff. So this is like your middle zone that you want to hit, and this is kind of, I think, a key to like this practice. This makes marathon pace feel easier because you're running like a little bit faster. Okay, hope that helped. Subscribe, that always helps, and reach out if you do want like personalized training. I'll put a link in there down below.